My name is Rose and I just turned 30 last month. Life hasn't been easy, but I've always been independent and tried to make my own way. I live in a small rented apartment downtown, nothing fancy, but it's been my home for the past 3 years. I work remotely as a content manager for an online magazine, which pays the bills but doesn't leave much room for savings. I have a younger sister, Eva, who's 26. Unlike me, Eva has always been the family favorite. Our parents have always seemed to favor her over me. Maybe it's because she's the baby of the family, or maybe it's because she's always been more willing to do what they want. Whatever the reason, I learned early on that I had to work twice as hard to get half the recognition. Eva recently got engaged to Brad, a guy she met at her gym 2 years ago. He seems nice enough, though a bit too eager to please my parents. Since their engagement, my parents have been over the moon, planning the wedding and fussing over every detail. Last week, I decided it was time to have a serious talk with my parents about my future. I'd been saving money for a down payment on a house, and I wanted their advice since they'd gone through the process before. "Mom, Dad, I've been thinking," I said as we sat around their dining table after Sunday dinner. Eva was there too, showing off her engagement ring for the 100th time. "I want to buy a house. I've been saving for a down payment. I figure I need another year before I have enough. I want something outside the city. Since I work remotely, I don't need to be close to downtown, and I could get more space for less money." My mom and dad exchanged looks, one of those silent communications parents have. Actually, my mom said, putting down her coffee cup, "You don't need to wait that long or worry about a mortgage. We've been talking, and we want you to have our country house." I nearly choked on my coffee. "Your country house? The one by the lake?" They nodded. The country house was a 2-story building about an hour from the city. They had bought it years ago but rarely used it anymore. "We hardly ever go there," my mom explained. "It's just sitting empty most of the time. If you fix it up a bit, you could move in right away." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. My parents had never given me anything significant before, and now they were offering me a house? It seemed too good to be true. "Are you serious?" I asked, still not quite believing it. "Absolutely," my dad said. "The house is solid, but it needs some updates. New floors, maybe reinforce the walls and foundation, nothing major." That night, I drove home in a daze. Maybe they finally appreciated me. Maybe they saw how hard I'd been working and wanted to help. For once, I felt like they were treating me like they treated Eva. The next day, I took a day off work and drove out to see the country house. It was a bit run down but had good bones. I walked through each room, already planning the renovations in my head. I could see myself living here, working from the sunroom that overlooked the lake, hosting friends for weekend barbecues. I called a contractor that afternoon. His name was Mike, and he came highly recommended by a colleague. He agreed to meet me at the house the next day to assess what needed to be done. Mike was thorough, examining everything from the foundation to the roof. "It's a good house," he said finally, "needs work, but nothing we can't handle." We discussed what I wanted: new hardwood floors throughout, reinforcing the foundation and walls, updating the kitchen and bathrooms, fresh paint everywhere. It would be a complete overhaul, but when it was done, it would be my dream home. When he showed me the estimate, I tried not to wince. $80,000. A significant part of my savings. But it would be worth it to have my own place, to stop throwing money away on rent. "Let's do it," I said, and we shook hands. For the next 2 months, I visited the house almost every day after work to check on the progress. The crew was efficient, and Mike kept me updated on everything. They tore up the old floors and put in beautiful hardwood. They reinforced the walls and foundation, making the house sturdy enough to last another 100 years. They updated the kitchen with new cabinets and countertops. I was amazed at how quickly the transformation was happening. Each day, the house looked more and more like my dream home. I started shopping for furniture, planning where everything would go. One evening, as I was about to leave the house after checking on the day's progress, my phone rang. It was my dad. "Hey, Rosie," he said, using my childhood nickname. How's the work coming along? It's going great, Dad. The crew just finished the floors, and they're reinforcing the last of the walls tomorrow. The foundation work is all done. That's fantastic, he said, sounding genuinely pleased. How much more needs to be done? Not much. I paid for most of the work already. The electrical and plumbing still need to be installed, but that's next on the list. Well, I'm proud of you, Rosie. Taking on a project like this isn't easy. His words warmed me. It was rare for my dad to express pride in me. Thanks, Dad, that means a lot. We chatted for a few more minutes before ending the call. I drove home feeling better than I had in years. Maybe things were finally changing between us. But my good mood didn't last long. That evening, I got another call, this time from Mike. His voice sounded concerned. Rose, we need to talk about something, he said. I've been going over the house plans and looking at some old photos, even checked the local archives. There's an issue we need to address before we install the plumbing. What kind of issue? I asked Mike, my stomach already nodding with worry. It's the pipes, Mike said. After studying everything more carefully, I realized that from the very beginning, all the pipes under the house and throughout the property were incorrectly installed. If we don't change them, they could burst at any moment and flood not just your property but the neighboring ones too. But the house has been standing for years without problems, I said. That's because your parents rarely used it, Mike said. The system could handle occasional weekend visits. But if you start living here permanently, having guests over, using water daily, these old pipes won't handle that kind of pressure. I rubbed my forehead, feeling a headache coming on. How serious is this? Very serious, Mike said. I talked with some colleagues who repaired the neighboring country house last year. They had similar issues with pipes and sewerage. They completely replaced everything. If you start fully using water and sewers without replacing the pipes, there's a high risk of an accident at the junction between your pipes and the neighbors. Sewage could flood both properties. They did expensive repairs, so they wouldn't be happy. My heart sank. How much would it cost to fix all this? Mike hesitated before answering. Roughly the same amount you've already spent on repairing the whole house. I nearly dropped my phone. Another $80,000? I need time to think about this, I said finally, and figure out the money situation. I understand, Mike said. Take a few days to decide. Just call me when you're ready. After hanging up, I sat in my car for a long time, trying not to cry. Everything had been going so well. Now this. 2 days later, I drove out to the house again, still undecided about what to do. As I pulled into the driveway, I was surprised to see my parents' car already there, along with Brad's car. I parked and walked to the front door, which was unlocked. Inside, I found my parents, Eva, and Brad, walking around the living room, examining the new floors and freshly painted walls. What are you all doing here? I asked, not bothering to hide my surprise. My mom turned, looking momentarily startled before her face settled into a smile. Rose, we were just checking on the renovation progress. It looks wonderful. Eva linked her arm through Brad's. I was just showing Brad around. Isn't it lovely? Something in her tone made my skin prickle. Yes, it is, but why are you showing Brad around my house? An awkward silence followed before my father cleared his throat. Well, that's actually why we're here. We've decided that Eva needs this house more than you do. She's getting married soon, and they need a place to live. I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach. Are you kidding me? I spent $80,000 on this house. Eva's smile didn't falter, and I can't thank you enough for that. We're family, Rose, we help each other out. You've helped me so much by doing all this work. There are just a few minor things left to finish, my mom added. We'll handle those ourselves, according to Eva and Brad's taste. I looked from one face to another, waiting for someone to tell me this was a sick joke. But they all stared back with perfect seriousness. You can come over once a month, Eva offered, as if she was being generous. The guest room is all yours. I couldn't even form words. They had planned this all along. Let me spend my savings, do all the hard work, and then swoop in to take the house from me. And they expected me to be okay with it? I thought about telling them about the pipes, about the potential disaster waiting to happen, but something stopped me. Behind me, I heard my mom call my name, but I didn't look back. I got in my car and drove away, hands shaking on the steering wheel. When I got back to my apartment, I called Mike. "I've decided not to proceed with the additional work," I said when he answered. "Are you sure?" Mike sounded concerned. "The pipe situation is serious." "The house isn't mine anymore," I said flatly. "The owners can take care of it themselves. They will hire another contractor." A month passed. I threw myself into work, taking on extra projects to rebuild my savings. I avoided checking social media, knowing I'd see updates about Eva and Brad. But one day, curiosity got the better of me. I logged onto Instagram and immediately saw Eva's latest posts. Photos of the completely renovated house, walls painted, wallpaper up, electrical work done, plumbing installed, new furniture and appliances everywhere. There was a post announcing a housewarming party that weekend. "Can't wait to welcome family and friends to our new home. Brad and I are so excited to start our life together here." Of course, I hadn't been invited. I stared at the photos for a long time, taking in all the details of what should have been my home. The kitchen I had designed. The living room I had painted myself when the crew was behind schedule. All now decorated according to Eva's taste. I closed the app and went for a long walk, trying to clear my head. I kept telling myself that it was just a house, that I could save up again and find another place. But it wasn't just about the house. It was about being used by my own family, treated like I didn't matter. A week after Eva's housewarming party, I got a call from my cousin Jenna. We'd always been close, even when I was on the outs with the rest of the family. "Hey Rose," she said when I answered, "you missed quite a show at Eva's party." I sat up straighter. "What?" In the middle of the party, while Eva was showing everyone her fancy new bathroom, there was this horrible gurgling sound. Then water started coming up through the drains. Not just water, sewage. I closed my eyes, picturing the scene. No way. Yes way, it was chaos, people running around, Eva screaming. Then there was this loud noise from outside, like something bursting. Everyone ran out to see what happened, and there was sewage bubbling up from the ground all over the yard. I shouldn't have felt satisfied, but I did. Jenna continued with the gossip, unaware that I knew anything about the plumbing issues beforehand or that I had spent my savings renovating the place. She had no idea my parents had promised me the house and then taken it away. "How bad is it?" I asked, trying to sound merely curious. "Bad." The contractor came the next day and told Eva and Brad they need to replace all the pipes. To do that, they'll have to break down some walls and floors. Basically redo all the renovations. He said it would cost twice what they already spent fixing up the place. I winced at that, even though I was angry. I hadn't wanted things to get this bad. "That's not all," Jenna continued. "The neighbors came over, absolutely furious. Their new pool is full of sewage, and their garden is ruined. They're demanding compensation." After talking with Jenna, I tried to focus on work, but I couldn't stop thinking about the house. Later that evening, my phone started blowing up with texts and calls from my family. I ignored them all. Finally, I checked the messages. Most were from my mom. "Rose, why didn't you tell us about the pipes?" From Eva, "This is your fault, you should have fixed the pipes, call me back now." I turned off my phone and went to bed. In the morning, I had even more messages. I read through them all but didn't respond. Then I got a text from my dad that made me pause. "Rose, we need to talk, this is serious, the neighbors are threatening to sue." I texted back, "Not my problem, not my house." My phone rang immediately. It was my dad. Against my better judgment, I answered. "Why didn't you fix the pipes?" he demanded without even saying hello. "I didn't know anything about any pipes," I lied. I knew my parents had never bothered to ask who was doing the renovations. They hadn't shown any interest in the contractor I'd hired or the details of the work. They couldn't verify anything. You should have done better research before starting renovations, my dad said weakly. You should have let me keep the house I spent $80,000 renovating, I countered. Eva's getting married, she needs. I don't care what Eva needs, I shouted, surprising myself with my anger. What about what I need? I worked hard for that money, I was going to make that house my home. And you just took it away like it was nothing. I hung up and turned off the phone. For the next few months, I focused on rebuilding my savings. I looked at properties online sometimes, thinking about where I might eventually buy. Somewhere far from my family, that was for sure. Then Jenna called me again. No one's living in the house now, she told me. The whole place reeks of sewage. The neighbors are still on the warpath, threatening lawsuits left and right. What are Mom and Dad doing? I couldn't help asking. They're desperate, they've been calling around to everyone in the family, asking for loans. They even asked my parents. Dad told them to take a hike. I snorted, Uncle Dave always did have good sense. They're blaming you, you know, Jenna added. Telling everyone you promised to help with repairs and then backed out at the last minute. That's not what happened, I said. I figured, they're probably just looking for someone to blame. A few days later, my grandmother called. She'd always been fair, the only one who treated Eva and me equally. Rose, she said, her voice tired, I need you to tell me what happened with this house. Your parents are asking me for money, blaming you for everything. I'm hearing different stories from everyone. I told her everything, how my parents had offered me the house, how I'd spent my savings renovating it, and how they'd taken it away once the hard work was done. I maintained that I hadn't known about the pipe issues, and it wasn't my responsibility anyway since they'd taken the house from me. Grandma was quiet for a long time. I won't be giving them any money, she finally said. What they did to you was wrong, let this be a lesson to them. The weeks passed, from what I heard through Jenna, my parents had taken out a loan and used all their savings to pay the neighbors for the damage. They'd removed the old pipes but hadn't replaced them yet. The water was turned off, and all repair work had stopped. If they don't dry out the house before it gets cold, they'll have a mold problem too, Jenna told me. Not my problem, I said, but I felt a twinge of something. Not quite guilt, but something close to it. Time passed, and I was slowly putting the whole house drama behind me. I'd started seriously looking at properties again, even put in a pre-approval application for a mortgage. My savings weren't what they had been before the renovation disaster, but I had enough for a decent down payment on a small condo. One afternoon, I was working on a deadline when my phone rang. It was a number I didn't recognize, so I almost didn't answer. But something made me pick up. Rose speaking, I said, still typing with one hand. Rose, it's Aunt Meredith. I paused. Aunt Meredith was my father's sister. We'd never been particularly close. Hi, Aunt Meredith, I said cautiously, what can I do for you? I ran into your father yesterday. He seems to think you're to blame for all the problems with that country house. He says you promised to help pay for the repairs and then backed out. I wasn't in the mood to explain everything again, but I also didn't want her believing my parents' version. Look, maybe we could meet for coffee? It's a long story. She agreed, and we arranged to meet at a cafe downtown that afternoon. I told her everything, just as I had told Grandma and Jenna. How my parents had offered me the house, how I'd spent my life savings renovating it, and how they'd taken it away once the hard work was done. Aunt Meredith's expression shifted from skepticism to shock as I spoke. When I finished, she sat back in her chair. I had no idea, she said finally, your father made it sound like you were being difficult for no reason. Didn't you notice that I wasn't at the housewarming party? I asked. She frowned. I asked Eva about that. She said you were jealous of her and refused to come. I laughed bitterly, of course she did. Why would she admit she stole my house? We talked a while longer. Aunt Meredith seemed genuinely troubled by what I'd told her. We parted on better terms than we'd ever been on before, and I felt a small weight lift from my shoulders. At least someone in my family was on my side. The seasons changed, summer turned to fall, and fall began to chill into winter. I hadn't heard directly from my parents or Eva in months, though Jenna kept me updated on the house situation. "It's a disaster," she told me during one of our regular calls. "They still haven't replaced the pipes. The place is just sitting there, getting damper by the day." "What about Eva and Brad?" I asked, more out of curiosity than concern. "They're living in a tiny apartment." Eva's furious. She keeps posting passive-aggressive things on social media about family loyalty. I snorted, "That's rich, coming from her." "Brad's parents won't help them either. Apparently, they think Eva and your parents tried to scam you." That made me smile, at least someone could see through their act. Winter settled in properly, bringing freezing temperatures and snow. I secured a mortgage approval and was actively looking at condos, hopeful that I might be in my own place by spring. Then, just before Christmas, my phone rang with a number I hadn't seen in months, my father's. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity got the better of me. "Hello?" "Rose," my father's voice sounded tired, defeated. "We need to talk. Your mother and we've made some mistakes." I didn't say anything, waiting for him to continue. "The repairs are more than we can handle. We've used all our savings, took out a second mortgage on our own house. It's still not enough." "I'm sorry to hear that," I said, not feeling sorry at all. "We need your help, Rose. You know the house. You worked with the contractors." I laughed in disbelief. "You want my help? After what you did?" "I know we hurt you," he admitted, "but we're family." "Family doesn't take advantage of each other the way you took advantage of me," I replied coldly. He sighed. "We know you have savings. We could pay you back eventually." "My savings are for my own place. I'm buying a condo." "Please, Rose, just think about it." I ended the call without promising anything. The nerve of them, asking me for money after everything they'd done. The calls and texts started up again after that. Not just from my parents but from Eva too. All asking, then demanding, then begging for help. I blocked their numbers. By January, I'd found a condo I loved. It was small but modern, with big windows and a balcony overlooking a park. I put in an offer, and it was accepted. As I signed the paperwork, I felt a sense of peace I hadn't experienced in months. This was my place, bought with my money. No one could take it away from me. The week before I was due to move in, I ran into Aunt Meredith at the grocery store. She looked surprised to see me. "Rose, I was just thinking about you." We made small talk for a few minutes before she asked, "Have you heard about the house?" "No," I admitted, "I've been busy with the condo purchase. It's a nightmare, there's mold everywhere now. Your parents didn't properly dry it out after the sewage incident, and with the winter cold, it's just gotten worse." I nodded, unsurprised. "What are they going to do?" "I don't think they can do anything. They're out of money, and no one in the family will lend them any more. The bank's threatening to foreclose on their own house because they've fallen behind on the second mortgage payments." I should have felt vindicated, but instead, I just felt tired. "That's unfortunate." "They made their bed," Aunt Meredith said with surprising firmness. "Now they have to lie in it." As I drove home, I thought about everything that had happened. My parents and Eva had tried to use me, and it had backfired spectacularly. I hadn't wished for things to go this badly for them, but I couldn't bring myself to feel guilty either. A week later, I moved into my condo. It was everything I'd hoped for: bright, modern, mine. I spent the weekend arranging furniture and hanging pictures, making the space my own. On Sunday evening, as I sat on my new balcony watching the sunset over the park, my phone rang. It was Jenna. "Hey, just calling to see how the move went," she said. "It's perfect," I told her, "everything I wanted." "I'm happy for you, Rose, you deserve it after everything." We chatted for a while about the condo and her job. Then, just before hanging up, she mentioned the country house. "They're going to have to sell it as is, for whatever they can get. It'll probably be torn down." I nodded, though she couldn't see me. "Some things can't be fixed." "No," she agreed, "some things can't." After we hung up, I sat watching the stars appear one by one in the darkening sky. I thought about the house, about what it had represented, my parents' approval, a place of my own, a future. And I thought about what I had now, a home I'd chosen, paid for with my own money. It was smaller than the country house would have been, but it was mine, truly mine. Sometimes losing what you thought you wanted leads you to what you actually need. I'd lost a house but gained something more valuable, the knowledge that I didn't need my family's approval to build a life I loved.